To breaking news out of the Middle East this morning, where the U.S. and Iran have once again traded strikes. U.S. Central Command calling strikes on Qeshm Island in the Strait of Hormuz, quote, self-defense, after Iran sent drones and missiles toward bases across the Middle East. News Nation Washington correspondent Hannah Brandt has the latest from the White House for us. And Hannah, get us up to speed here, because I understand one of those strikes hit Kuwait's airport.
Marky, that's right, which is obviously a big deal this morning. CENTCOM did say overnight Iran fired multiple missiles in retaliation for an attack on the Strait of Hormuz, and at least one of those, as you mentioned, hit the international airport in Kuwait. And the spokesman for Kuwait's Ministry of Defense does say that in that missile attack, at least one person was killed, a number of people were wounded. The airport was damaged, but it's now, we're hearing, partially reopened after it shut down entirely earlier this morning. Kuwait Airport's main international terminal had actually just reopened on Monday after being damaged in another Iranian attack back in February, so it's being hit repeatedly. Those strikes did come in response to the U.S. military using a Hellfire missile to fire on a Botswana-flagged oil tanker that was trying to get through that U.S. naval blockade. And the U.S. then hit an Iranian military training ground control station on Qeshm Island near the Strait of Hormuz. So it was in retaliation that Iran was targeting U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain, firing a total of 5 missiles and drones. CENTCOM says overall these attacks did fail, but all of these actions are coming shortly after Iran had said it's suspending ceasefire and peace talks, though President Trump said Monday he believes a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and extend a ceasefire is still within reach, even telling some reporters he thinks it could happen over the next week, Marky.
Many new developments overnight, Hannah. And also, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was just in the hot seat in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on Tuesday, answering questions about a potential Iran deal. What more did he have to share there?
That's right. The secretary really got grilled on this, and Rubio told lawmakers that discussions with Tehran are ongoing. He voiced some optimism. He says these discussions, though, are happening in 2 phases. The first being about reopening the Strait of Hormuz without any tolls being charged by Iran. The second phase, he says, involves Iran's nuclear program and what he called possible sanctions relief.
Any sanctions relief is condition-based, which means it has to be in return for the reason why those sanctions were put in place in the first place, which is their nuclear program. There will be sanctions relief associated with their commitment and compliance
you will not
with those agreements.
Sanctions relief just in exchange for reopening the strait.
No, that's not been discussed. That's not been offered.
There's been a lot of mixed messaging, though, and whiplash on where these negotiations stand, because earlier this week, Iranian state media had said that negotiators are going to stop exchanging messages with the U.S., though President Trump said late yesterday that it's false that Iran and the U.S. have stopped talking, Marky.
Hannah Brandt, live at the White House. Thank you. For more, let's bring in National Iranian American Council President Jamal Abdi and Heritage Foundation Senior National Defense Fellow, retired Navy Captain Brent Sadler. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you. Let me just ask that question that Hannah just left off with there. Captain, I'll start with you, with Iran saying, you know, they're going to halt talks, and the president saying they're still moving ahead at a rapid pace. Both of those can't be true at once. So whose version of events are you believing here, and what should the American public believe?
Well, I think all those things actually could be true, especially given that the regime in Tehran is fractured. And again, that's part of the plan, is to try to provide an opportunity for the Iranian people to take back their country. So time is on our side, the United States side, through the pressures of the blockade, both on Iran directly, but also its biggest benefactors or customers of its energy, like China. The attacks that you're seeing, I think, are part of an effort by the regime to try to distract, or to try to show that there are still some costs that they could levy on the United States if we continue to apply that same very pressure. So it's a matter of time before the regime will capitulate. And again, I think the other thing that's important to note is, where are the Iranian people in all this? It's been very quiet on that front.
Jamal, let me also ask you just about the new strikes that were traded overnight. You know, an Iranian consulate in India releasing footage of what it says are Iranian attacks on U.S. troops in the Middle East. Central Command confirming it downed several Iranian drones overnight. Is the ceasefire over? Is it fair to say that?
The ceasefire seems to have been over for a while, and yet the talks are going on, and yet you know, I think this is the cycle that we've been doing for many
it's
weeks
confusing
now. Yeah, and I think, you know, to hear your other guests talk about it, we're still looking at Iranian capitulation as the saving grace for this war that we have imposed on the region, and that's not happening. You know, it's the current strategy is not going to lead to that end. There needs to be a negotiated deal. The president keeps going on Truth Social and saying we're on the brink of a deal, and then last minute changing the terms, or last minute the U.S. probes Iranian defenses and tries to see what Iran's willing to do. And clearly Iran is still willing to fight. So I actually don't think these things can be true at the same time. I think either we are trying to negotiate a way out of this catastrophic war that we launched, or we are looking to go back into this war, and slowly but surely we are making our way back into a scenario where the U.S. is looking at a major investment, potentially ground troops, if we want to see this thing through.
Captain, let me play some sound for you. Secretary Rubio says the war's military goals have been largely achieved. Take a quick listen here.
It was highly successful in achieving its military objectives, which is dramatically reducing the defense industrial base of Iran. The ability to build these missiles and to build these drones, especially the missiles program, substantially degraded.
Yeah, Captain, if you could just help me square that circle. How is Iran able to launch these new attacks seemingly every day if their military is in as rough of shape as the administration claims it to be?
Well, to be clear, we're not talking mass barrages of missiles. We are talking about some swarms of drones, and a lot of that damage in Kuwait, which is fairly close to Iran, and certainly the proxies that still operate in, notably in the southern part of Iraq. So it's gettable by what they still have, the IRGC in Iran. So eventually, again, there may have to be targeted strikes going after these launch sites. It could be special forces that go in to target or to lock down where they're launching from. But to be clear, there's nothing that is seen in the preparation for ground operations at a scale of like an invasion into Iran. So I think you're going to see a continued kind of wearing down of the regime. And that is, I think, what they're trying to distract from and to try to mitigate with these kind of targeted attacks against allies in the region.
Jamal, let me play this exchange for you and just viewers at home. Secretary Rubio also having this really tense exchange with Senator Cory Booker yesterday.
We are the strongest nation on the planet Earth, and we're in a stalemate with Iran. And now we're begging to get back into a deal that you all trashed in the first place.
There's no one begging. The Iranians might be begging because their economy's losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day.
Jamal, if you would break that exchange down for us, is Senator Booker right that the deal we're negotiating now is effectively the same as the 2015 Iran nuclear deal that President Trump tore up on the first day of his administration?
Well, look, the Trump administration wanted a deal that looked like what Benjamin Netanyahu has put forward as the ultimatum, which is zero enrichment. And that is an agreement that is not attainable. And the president went into Iran, bombed Iran to try to change that dynamic, to try to change the strategic picture, to get Iran to capitulate on this point. It's clear Iran is not capitulating. And so what we are looking at is a deal that is going to be focused, if we get a deal. I mean, I think that's still very uncertain. A deal that is focused on inspections, monitoring, and constraints. Now, fundamentally, that is the same principle as the JCPOA, as the Iran deal. And now the president is having to go through the same political hurdles that President Obama went through to get his deal. And I think it's kind of ironic. The administration is, you know, the president talked about people chirping about the deal and all the critics. Well, this is what it takes to get a deal with Iran. And we went through it once, and then the president tore it up, and now he's having to go through the same exercise. And I think that's why we are still at this, you know, non-war that Rubio claims, because the president hasn't reconciled the fact that Iran's not capitulating, so we actually have to negotiate a compromise deal, and that is going to look similar to the previous deal that the president spent all this time trashing and now has to figure out a way to sell it politically. So this is a trap of his own making, and I don't know how he's going to get out of it.
Captain, let me let you have the last word and respond to that, and any final thoughts on your end.
So a deal's not necessary because the United States actually has a lot of leverage over the regime, and there's very few options that Iran has. And so there's no real urgency from the United States, aside from those that try to connect domestic politics into what is a national security issue. And the only leverage point on that seems to be either protests on the streets, which have diminished, certainly don't have a lot of popular support anymore, but also through the gas prices. And I think you're going to see seasonal changes trending down before the midterm elections, and it'll be largely going in the right direction. It still will be elevated. But again, the bigger picture here is the United States has a lot of leverage on the regime, and also their benefactors like China that will, I think, eventually provide an opening for the Iranian regime to capitulate. So I disagree on that statement or the comments there. I do think that they will eventually cut a deal that will see us get something that's vastly different than the flawed 2015 JCPOA agreement.
Well, I know Americans across the country ready for some price relief, no matter how little. I got to end it there, but Captain Brent Sadler, Jamal Abdi, thank you both so much, gentlemen, for your time, as always. We'll see you again soon.